we? Okay. Good evening, everybody. A very warm welcome to the Stamford District Council full council meeting tonight. I hope you're all well and keeping safe. Before to start our proceedings this evening, I'm going to invite Reverend Dawn Stokes to say some prayers for the meeting. Many thanks indeed, Dawn.
Thank you very much, Leader. Can I just say how lovely it is to be with you all this evening, and to see that you all look hale and hearty. I'm just to give my apologies that I can't stay for the whole meeting, so I will be leaving after the prayers. So let us pray. Heavenly Father, we ask for your spirit of guidance and fairness for our discussions this evening. May compassion for all those in our district inform our discussions as we seek to help to shape our communities over this next year. We continue to be mindful of the strange and difficult times we are living through, which add to our burden of responsibility towards our neighbours. Though we are careworn and weighed down by our current circumstances, we ask that we may work together to find good ways forward for Daventry District over the coming weeks and months. Help us all to make wise decisions for the benefit of everyone in our communities, whilst respecting one another's diverse views, so that our deliberations may reach a satisfactory conclusion. Amen.
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 Thank you very much indeed, Dawn. Very nice words. And thank you for attending. Really appreciate that. Thank you. And by the way, I'm not the leader anymore, but I'm the chairman. But thank you for that promotion again. No, don't worry. I'm happy with that. That's okay. I'm not sure the current leader will be. No, that's very nice, Dawn. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
The minutes. Thank you. Bye-bye, Dawn. The minutes of the meeting, I understand there's been no accuracy issues being raised by any members. So can we take those as confirmed?
Yes, agreed.
Thank you. Apologies for absence.
Yeah, Chair, can I just again,
Yes.
Councillor Nick Bunting did contact me and say that he's running a bit late, but we'll try and join the meeting in due course. I can't see whether he's arrived or not. I don't think he has.
He has arrived.
He has arrived now.
Oh,
he has arrived now,
thank
Leader.
you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard. So we've got two apologies, Sarah Peck and Liz Griffin. Thank you. Declarations of members' interests. To receive declarations of members' disposable interests and nature of such interests in any of the following agenda items. Are there any interests to declare? If not now, can you please declare them at the time the item comes up? Oh, the roll call. Sorry, my apologies.
Members have just got to do the roll call. If you could just confirm that you've got audio and visual for me, please. Councillor Amos? Can't see him, actually. Councillor Auger?
Yeah, I have both, thank you.
Councillor Brown?
Yes, confirmed.
Councillor Amos is there now.
Or is he? Councillor Bunting?
Here.
Councillor Amos, can you see and hear us?
I certainly can, Jeremy. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chandler?
Yes to both.
Councillor Cribbin?
Yes.
Yes to both.
Yes.
Councillor Dabbs?
Yeah, I'm here, all working.
Councillor Eden? Eden? No. Councillor Frost?
Hi, good evening. Yes, thank you.
Councillor Guildford?
I can confirm yes to both.
Thank you. Councillor Harrington Carter?
Yes to both.
Thank you. Councillor Harris?
Yes to both.
Councillor Hills?
Yes to both.
Councillor Amy Howard?
Here.
Councillor Wayne Howard?
Yes to both.
Councillor Irving Swift, I believe she's running late. Councillor James?
Yes to both.
Councillor Lomax?
Yes, both, thank you.
Councillor Longley?
Yes to both, thank you.
Councillor Matton?
Yes, both, thank you.
Councillor Micklewright?
Yes to both, thank you.
The chairman's here. Councillor Morgan?
Yes to both, Chair, please. Sorry about the technical problem. Of course, I'm here now. Thank you.
Thank
Disregard my notes.
Councillor Osborne?
Yes, both.
Councillor Parker.
Yes to both.
Councillor Pritchard.
Yes to both, thank you.
Councillor Randall.
Yes to both.
Councillor Ritchie.
Yes to both.
Councillor Robertson. Councillor Shepherd.
Yes, yeah.
Councillor Smith.
Yes to both, thank you.
Councillor Warren.
Yes to both.
Councillor Wesley. And Councillor Woolnough.
Yes to both.
Thank you.
Jivoli, I am back. I can join now. I was late. I had a problem to join.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Irving Swift, and I can see you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Wesley is shown as joined the meeting.
Councillor Wesley's joined. Okay.
Councillor Wesley, have you got audio and visual?
I'm struggling with visual at times at the moment. I did have it, and now it seems to be clicking in and out, and a little bit of dodgy on the audio as well. So I'm going to do my best.
You can see you, Mark. You can see Mark.
Yeah, you can now. It said it was dropping out. So I've just switched devices to hopefully that will sort it.
Okay, sir. Right then. Is that okay?
Chairman, can we just check whether Councillor Deanna Eddins online, please? No.
No.
Okay, thank you.
So put it down, and apologies if she doesn't turn up. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that roll call. So we've gone for the members' interests. Are there any members' interests who've joined the meeting since we last asked a few minutes ago? If not, please declare them on the meeting as you see fit. Come to Chairman's announcements. Well, today actually I had my first actual visits as a chairman, and I was meant to go to the Catesby Tunnel opening or the event the other week, and I couldn't make that, unfortunately. But Catesby Tunnel, of course, as we all know, is the only one in the world of its kind in terms of the wind tunnel, which is not actually owned by a company. So the other one's in the States, which is owned by a private company. This is the only one that's open to the whole market. So again, that's great news for Daventry. I had the privilege today also to visit Signal Park, which is actually where the Knoll is. It's very, very muddy there today, as Alan Hills will attest, and we had a very muddy time there. But actually, it just shows you that's something that's been on the agenda for years. And thanks to the SEMLEP monies, we're now being able to move this project forward. And this will be there for small businesses, a number of small businesses who will fill those units when they're built by next year. So that, again, was a very positive visit. Also went to see a company called Ensafe today, Ensafe. Again, a company in Daventry, which again is a small company which has expanded over 25 years. I've opened up their new premises today. And I think that, again, was a very successful visit. So that was very positive as well. And I'm going to just finish my announcement today about the charity, which you should all be aware about, because our leader, in my 20 years as leader, I never produced a CD with my own music on it, thankfully for all of you. But I just want to say this CD by Richard, and I have to say, I was very impressed when I heard it, as other people have been impressed with it when they heard it. But it's not about being impressed by the CD. It's actually helping the two charities this year, which are Time to Talk for counselling services for young people, which I think is very relevant at the moment in COVID, because a lot of young people are really struggling. And the second one, of course, is the Marie Curie Cancer, or the Marie Curie services, which deal with end of life. And I know over my years as a leader here, I've seen them used on some councils and no longer with us, unfortunately, and they're absolutely brilliant. So again, I think they're two worthwhile charities. And the minimum now per CD is £10, thanks to Richard allowing that to be the case now. But obviously any amount of money as a contribution or as a donation will all go to the charities. So all the monies raised will go to the two charities I mentioned. So please support me if you feel you can. And be rest assured those monies will be put to good use for the benefit of our communities. Thank you for that. I've got no more announcements to make on my side. I now want to move on to questions under Council Procedure Rules 10 and 11. We have 4 questions from members of the public, and the first one to the leader, and the first one from Alan Nape.
Sorry, thank you, Chairman. My question was to the Leader of the Council. Daventry District Council seems to keep jumping into decisions against the will of the citizens of the district. The latest example is to give £5 million worth of land to the government to build a school which is not wanted in the town and is getting rid of one of the few green pieces of land left near the town centre. The District Council has a history in this, from rapid transport pods to canal arms and marinas. With this decision, as with many of the previous ones, this goes against the outcome of a public consultation, which is especially troubling, as a free school is created to respond to the need of a new school in their community. This consultation had a 97% of respondents against the idea. The only reason the council hasn't pressed ahead already is due to an opposition member attending the meeting from his own hospital bed. Will the council pass on what is learned to the future West Northamptonshire Council so the citizens of the district may actually get what they want and not what senior officers and portfolio holders think is best for the people?
You want me to answer that, Chair? Chair, do you want? I take you just want me to answer that? Yeah, I don't need your permission.
Chair, you're muted.
Muted. I'm trying to get unmuted. That's it. Can you hear me now? Yes, I'm asking you to respond to that, please, Leader.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Nate, for your question. As always, it's good to see you. Just want to make it very clear about what the consultation was all about. Consultation certainly wasn't a referendum with just over 200 responses when there are over 26,000 people living in Daventry. It can't be seen as that. It's simply a way of, I would think, scrutinising and getting opinion. We asked for opposition, and that's exactly what we got, so that we can be informed, that our debates can be informed, and we can then discuss the issues. And the consultation did exactly what it should do. And I'm really grateful for all those that have contributed. It gave us an opportunity to look at the issues. And in fact, over the past 2 days, I've been writing some emails and helping people understand some of the issues and actually putting out there the facts to resolve concerns. So it certainly wasn't a referendum. We have listened, we continually listen, but also, sir, you need to understand there are lots of people that actually want the school, and we need to represent their views as well. And also the matter will be discussed later on, so please stay online and listen to the discussion later on in the meeting. With regard to the issue of value of land for the new school, well, the land needs to be realised, and of course, if it was developed, it would be about £5 million. Now, of course, that land will be developed. This is one of the misunderstandings I've been putting right. It will be developed, and it's actually, what do we do with that land? What's the best use of actually that land? We could put it up for commercial, which will bring us in about 5 million. And that is an option still. We could do that. Or we could give the land to the Secretary of State for a new school and turn our 5 million asset into over a 20 million input into a school that will be needed. And hopefully by the time it comes on board, which will be about maybe 2023, around that time, that is the time when the new school will be needed, and we will have a school with a high quality educational officer that will benefit the children for generations to come. So the local plan and extensive public engagement and independent examination have taken place with regard to that development. So it's something that the full council agreed. Allowing the school to be built will bring much benefit to the area. And of course, we will pass on all this work and all the consultations, and everybody will understand exactly where we are with this, what the opposition mean, and obviously what the positives are of going forward with the project. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. And as the Leader's already said, Mr. Nate, there's going to be a discussion on this later in the meeting, and hopefully you'll be able to stay on and listen to that debate. Thank you much indeed. The next question comes from Crick Parish Council, represented by Councillor Brian Hughes, to the Leader. Over to you, Mr. Hughes.
Good evening, Chairman, Councillors, ladies and gentlemen. This question concerns the relatively new practice known as freehold. where public open space and other shared facilities in a housing development are controlled by a management company. Our question is, why, despite repeated requests, have the Chief Executive and Executive Director Resources refused to explain the reasoning behind Daventry District Council's approval of the St Margaret's View Crick Management Company Limited as satisfactory to carry out the future maintenance of the St Margaret's View Crick public open space in accordance with the terms of the Section 106 agreement? This explanation has been sought on a number of occasions to reassure Crick Parish Council and the residents of St Margaret's View, who have both raised detailed concerns supported by legal advice, that the funding provisions for the management company in the transfer documents for the properties are defective, and that as a result, the public open space will become derelict. Will the Chief Executive and the Executive Director Resources reconsider their decision and, in the interests of transparency, provide Crick Parish Council and the residents of St Margaret's View an explanation as to why they consider their concerns to be unfounded? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Over to you, Leader.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Hughes, for your question. The Executive Director Resources wrote to the Parish Council and a number of local residents on the 15th of July 2020, setting out the reasons for the approval of the transfer of the public open space to St Margaret's View Crick Management Company Limited. In doing so, the Council has discharged its legal obligation in accordance with the terms of the Section 106 agreement. The Council is satisfied that it has received assurances from the developer that appropriate arrangements are in place to carry out this maintenance, and having taken legal advice, concluded that it would be unreasonable not to approve the transfer.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. We now move on to the next question from Chris Myers. To you, Leader. Nice to see you again, Chris. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you. My question is very similar to that from Alan Nape. I'll read it out nonetheless. It relates to the public consultation on District Council plans to dispose of land that it owns on Easton Way so that it can be made available for the building of a new secondary school. Of the 226 who replied to the consultation, 97% indicated opposition to these plans. Will the Leader of the Council assure me that you will have full regard for the public opposition to the disposal of the land for these purposes when considering this matter?
Thank you, Mr. Myers. Over to you, Leader.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Myers, for your question. As I said, the outcomes of the consultation were considered in the September meeting of the strategy group, and that information is available to all members. There is no doubt I took great interest in that and have considered that, along with those individuals that actually want the proposal and also all the other issues that we need to consider when making these important decisions. I am confident members of the Council will consider all relevant considerations when taking this decision on allowing the Secretary of State to build the new school later in this meeting. Those considerations will include, of course, the objections, but also the people that actually want it. We need to represent their views as well. And also the benefits of enabling a provision of education that will benefit the children for generations to come. We seem to miss that point. This is all about educational offers to children to increase their prosperity and opportunities for the future for generations to come. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Leader. Now move on to our final question. But delighted to see this question coming from Mr. Frankie McVeigh, a Year 10 student at Parker EAT. To the Leader. Over to you, Frankie McVeigh. Sorry? Oh, it's not attending, my apologies. I'll read the question out to you, Leader. In your report, it's a shame actually, because I'm delighted to see a Year 10 student taking such an interest. In your report, you say that the opening of a new school has the potential to destabilise the current schools and could result in the school becoming unviable. Then you say, should an existing school become unviable, it might eventually need to close. Of course, this would be sad for those involved in such circumstances. It is to be hoped that care would be taken of both pupils and staff affected. I'm a student at one of the current schools, and I find this really worrying. Please can you explain to me why you're happy to put my education at risk in this way? Your response, Leader.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sad that Mr. McVeigh isn't here, and I hope he's listening, and I hope that he realises how much we appreciate his input into this debate. The council agrees tonight, if the council agrees tonight, to allow the Secretary of State to build a new secondary school in Easton Way site. The earliest it would be open would probably be 2022, likely September 2023. So in fact, it's within that timescale that both the Department of Education and the County Council say that we will need a new school anyway. So purely on a personal level, Mr. McVeigh, who would be in year 12 or 13 by that time, the new school is not really going to affect him personally, and unless he would want to transfer, but that probably wouldn't be the case. But I understand the question is probably more about the impact it's going to have on the other schools. So looking wider, the new school, if it proceeds, will only be expected to open gradually, 1 year at a time. This would give a prolonged period of existing schools to adapt, and for the education, and for the Department of Education, which would fund all these schools, take any action it considers necessary to manage any issues which arise. My personal opinion is that it will raise standards in all of our schools. The school will be needed on the numbers, and the quality of education in Daventry is going to improve everybody's chances, all right, of good jobs and good futures. It's a wonderful opportunity. The reason for the council, with regard to its third secondary school, it's simple. At present, there's a large number of young people who are educated outside of Daventry. Over 1,000 children. That is not right. We can't continue that. There's over 1,000 children not wanting to be educated in Daventry, and we need to do something about that. And this is what the school is designed to do now and in the future, to ensure that the children of our town can go to schools in their town. All right. And you think about the impact on the environment that is, having people traveling less, and also having good educational offers on the doorstep. Thank you for your question, sir, and I really wish you all the best in your schooling time and also in your future career when you eventually take that on.
Thank you, Leader. And we're now moving on to questions from members of the council. We have two tonight. The first question to the Leader is from Councillor Ken Ritchie.
Thank you, Chair. My question is, does the Leader of the Council agree that the Big Switch scheme's decision to use only renewable energy sources is one of the best bits of news to come out of DDC for a while? Can the Leader of the Council, either at this meeting or by email, tell us how many residents now use the Big Switch scheme for their electricity supplies? And can it provide estimates not just of the average savings in fuel costs of participating residents, but also of the reduction in greenhouse gas emissions resulting from the scheme? Although most residents, the main attraction of the Big Switch will be cheaper electricity, can the Leader of the Council tell us what plans there are for marketing the scheme in a way that puts at least equal emphasis on environmental as well as the financial benefits?
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. Leader.
Yeah, can I first thank Councillor Ritchie for his question, and also it is really good to see you, sir, out of hospital, and I hope you are making a good recovery. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Okay, I agree with you. It's very good news indeed that the Big Switch will require all bidding suppliers to offer a renewable energy tariff from this month. I'm also very pleased. Sorry, I'm also very pleased to provide this information in response to your question about the residents using the Big Switch for their electricity and gas supplied. The last auction in May 2020, 301 Daventry District Council households registered for the scheme. Of these, 96 then switched. This is about average for each auction round. In 2019-2020, 1,121 households registered and 326. iChooser now provide carbon emission savings for each local authority based on the switching figures. The May 2020 auction, the total annual electricity consumption for the Daventry District households switched was 401,289 kilowatts. The CO2 savings from switching to a renewable provider was equivalent to 114, and I haven't got a clue what the next bit is, but I'll read it phonetically. It's Tango Charlie 02E. So there's obviously, you would probably know that's better than me. Or it's equivalent to taking 62 cars off the road for a whole year. Although the last three auctions have been won by a renewable electricity provider, the October auction is the first one where all bidding suppliers will be required to offer a renewable tariff. We are focusing on the renewables angle in the marketing for the autumn auction, and this will continue to be communicated to residents for future auctions. I encourage all council members to spread the word. It is so quick and easy to go about our website to register with Big Switch. It takes just 5 minutes to reduce your carbon footprint, lower your energy bills by registering for the Big Switch.
Thank you, Councillor Auger. Councillor Ritchie, do you have a supplementary?
I can really just add to my question. What the Leader of the Council has told us, I find encouraging. It's only a start, though, and it's how we can market this scheme, how we can involve people in this scheme on a much greater scale. Our starting point surely should be that, look, the climate is changing, and that is going to be exceptionally damaging for us. We've got to do something about it. The words we use have got to be able to convey that sense of urgency. It strikes me that with this scheme, not only is it in people's interests to sign up, but we're in a position where by getting people, simply asking people to do so, we spread that much wider message that takes us on to all the other things that need to be done as well.
Chair, can I respond, please?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Councillor Ritchie, you have got lots of ideas on this. Can I ask you to articulate those ideas to the portfolio lead or through me on ways that you see that we could improve this? And then I'm sure that they will be fed through to officers and see what we can do. But you are right. You know, it is it's something I've certainly been pushing forward on the new unitary with regard to how seriously we're taking climate change in the new structure. But we need to be seen to be doing a lot more. But thank you. If you'd like to do that, I'll make sure it gets to the right.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. The second question comes from Councillor Stephen Dabbs to the Leader.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, my question to the Leader. The report proposing for a new secondary school put to the strategy group on the 9th of July noted that a possible alternative outcome would be for the developers of the North East Daventry Urban Extension to secure the school as part of that development. The report's author concludes that would be equally welcome. It seems clear from the consultation on the disposal of the field at Easton Way, in which 97% of respondents were against the proposal, that locating the school within the North East Urban Extension would not just be equally welcome, it would be very much more preferable option, thereby saving the valuable green space off Easton Way and allowing that space to be developed or not in accordance with the new town vision currently under consultation. Will the Leader of the Council therefore tell us on how many occasions during the past 3 months and on what dates he or the relevant portfolio holder or members of the senior management team of officers have met with representatives of the developers of the North East Urban Extension to discuss a site for a new school. Will he also tell us the outcome of such discussions?
Thank you, Councillor Dabbs. A leader to respond.
Thank you. You know, we often hear this 97% and it sounds like a massive landslide. I'd like to just remind the public that's 97%, 200 responses that we requested, objections, and there are 26,000 voices in this town. And we have taken note of their consultation. But I thank you for your question, sir, as always. The council aim would indeed to be equally well met by a school located in the North East Daventry Urban Extension. However, that does not appear to be a realistic option. No formal meetings have taken place between portfolio holders or members of the senior management team and the developers in the last 3 months, or with developers in the last 3 months. However, there have been a number of telephone discussions with the relevant director of the developer. The dates of those were not recorded. It is clear from those discussions that the developer does not see a way practically deliver a school on the site in the foreseeable future. Moreover, doing so would result in challenges to the viability of the site, further reducing the level of affordable housing. Giving the need to secure affordable housing is also a corporate strategic planned objective, and this should be avoided if possible. So if we can give this land to the Secretary of State and have our school built, not only will we have this wonderful facility to improve the educational prospects of our children, we will also then have more money to provide affordable housing for people to live in Daventry.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Dabbs, you'd like to ask a supplementary question?
Yes, I would, please. This new school goes back a few years, and we will come back to this later, but it'd be interesting to know is where was the school always meant to be based? Was it always meant to be based on Eastern Way? Because I don't feel that it can have been, because there was meant to be a canal on Eastern Way and various other developments. So when we go back to, I don't know, 2018, I think it was mentioned there, maybe earlier. Where was the school planned to be? Was it always planned to be an Eastern Way, or was it meant to be in that Northeastern Extension? And now we've got difficult developer coming along, not helping with basically the plan to put the new school in.
Well,
thank you, Councillor Dabbs. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, those are really good questions. I pretty much have a grip of them, but I'd want to be accurate. I'll make sure that I email you those specific questions. So if officers can take a note of those, I would like a response for Councillor Dabbs with regard to the questions that he's asked.
And can you make sure, Leader, that's distributed to all members as well, the response?
Yeah, if officers can note that, please, and send that to me, and I'll ensure that is sent to Councillor Dabbs and all members. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Dabbs. We're now going to move on to a motion. I just want to say tonight, councillors, we're doing very well so far, that I'm going to allow up to 5 minutes to speak on any item, and with a minute to go, you've been notified of a minute to go. I can't allow you to go over that limit because otherwise it's open doors for everyone. And I think 5 minutes is normally more than enough to get your points across. And clearly, I'm trying to make sure that we keep the conversations and the debates tonight in a focused way. So thank you very much indeed for your help there. Can I now move on to the motion under Council Procedure Rule 12? This is a motion, the proposer is Councillor Jonathan Harris, please. Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, councillors. Can I also just firstly echo the comments made earlier by Council Leader? It's really good to see Councillor Ritchie here, and I also hope he's feeling much better than he was. I note from the strategy papers issued yesterday that a consultation response has now been written. Given that the consultation was launched on the 6th of August and its significance, I'm a little surprised the response was not prepared for strategy on the 10th of September so that it could be presented in the papers for this full council meeting. The closing date for the consultation is the 20th of October, so full council technically has no real opportunity to fully comment on the response other than through the strategy group, which I believe is next week. Now, a caveat to the rest of my comments on this motion. I expect that many of you will hear my comments as political. Why? Well, because they are. The white paper is a political matter. It's not a Lib Dem, Labour or any other party's consultation. It's not a cross-party paper. It's a Conservative one. Now, those of you who attend West Northants Shadow Council meeting at the last time will have seen the motion presented by the Liberal Democrat group amended to remove political parts that were seen to be political or critical. Now, I recognise that there are many from all parties in this virtual chamber who are equally frustrated and dissatisfied with the white paper. So whilst this is a political issue, I hope that this Sovereign Council does not take the same approach as West Northants. If the proposals in this paper are adopted, not only will councils have decision-making power over individual applications taken away from them, they will lose the ability to set their own planning policies in their areas. Under this system, planning policies will all be set nationally with local plans restricted to zoning and permitted sites and controlling the development standards to which schemes must be built. Some have called it a property developer's charter that will benefit Tory donors and could spell the end of affordable housing. Surely no coincidence, therefore, that the Conservative Party has benefited, allegedly, from some £11 million in donations from so-called property tycoons. Now, the Wildlife Trust believes that there are fundamental flaws in the current planning system because it has allowed huge declines in the natural world, and a proposed reform, they believe, will make a bad situation, in fact, much worse. Nikki Williams, Director of Campaigning at Policy for the Wildlife Trust, says, "We live in one of the most nature-depleted countries in the world. The White Paper proposes a planning system with 3 categories of land earmarked for growth, renewal and protection. But this is simplification. It brings the risk of creating a disconnected landscape, one in which wildlife continues to decline because nature doesn't slot into neat little boxes. Protecting isolated fragments of land is not enough to help wildlife recover, nor will it put nature into people's lives, something that is now recognised as vital for our health and well-being." Miss Bowers, one of my local residents, entirely echoes these comments. It will increase nature's decline, fail to integrate nature into people's lives, and undermine the democratic process for local decision-making. She is entirely correct, 100%. Now, REBA is not a political organisation. REBA President Alan Jones is simply stating the views from REBA. He says, whilst there is no doubt the planning system needs reform, these shameful proposals do nothing to guarantee the delivery of affordable, well-designed and sustainable homes. While they might help get Britain building, paired with the extension of the changed permitted development rights, there's every chance that they could also lead to the creation of the next generation of slum housing. The housing crisis isn't just about numbers, and deregulation won't solve it. If the government is serious about addressing the dominant position of large house builders and the lack of quality of social housing, the Secretary of State needs to make changes to the tax system, look at why land approved for development lies untouched for years, and give local authorities power to resource and promote and safeguard quality. The commitment to make all new homes carbon neutral by 2050 also needs to be brought radically forward. We simply cannot go on building homes that damage the environment and leave people at risk of fuel poverty for another 30 years. These reforms might seem radical, but they won't even scratch the surface when it comes to building the homes that we need. End of the quote. Zach Simmons, a planning barrister at Landmark Chambers, says that there is literally nothing trailed in Jenrick's public statements that could not already be achieved under the current planning system. Hugh Ellis, who is director of Town and Country Planning Association, says it's about local democracy. When local people are walking down the street and come across a new development that they didn't know about, the answer will now be, well, you should have been involved in the consultation 8 years ago when the code was agreed. It's diluting the democratic process. At the moment, people get 2 chances to be involved, once when the plan is made and once when the planning application is submitted. Now, under this proposal, they will only have 1 when the code is being prepared. Now, those of us who serve on the planning committee, I acknowledge that I'm still somewhat of a newcomer to this committee, know that there are issues. No system is perfect. However, it provides a chance for debate, for thorough consideration against local policies, a chance for public consultation and public engagement. Now, what are the merits? I've been looking for merits. Well, a simplification and digitisation would both be welcome. However, I do have some concerns on the digitisation front. The Excel spreadsheet debacle this week doesn't exactly fill one with confidence. Now, I would like to propose this motion to Council and the hope that councillors will support it wholeheartedly. We must not and cannot fail those that we represent. We must express our concerns in the strongest way possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. I understand Councillor Lomax is going to second this.
I'm going to second it, Chairman.
Do you want to do that now? Do you want to reserve
yes, please. Yes, please, if I may speak now.
You may, yes.
On the first part of the motion, we acknowledge that the Council's response to the consultation will be debated at strategy next week. And this is not to duplicate nor to subvert that response, but to add to it by writing direct to the Minister and to our MP. We know the weaknesses of consultations and the anonymised and mechanical nature of them. It is important to add our voice direct to the Minister, together with all those local authorities and multiple organisations which are doing likewise. A reminder of the facts. These proposals are opposed by all political groups within the LGA. The Town and Country Planning Association condemned them as disruptive and rushed, saying that 90% of planning applications are currently approved, but there are up to 1 million unbuilt permissions for new homes. In the financial year to April 2019, only 6,287 new social rent homes were delivered, and 23,740 were sold or demolished in the same period. Shelter said social housing could face extinction if the requirement for developers to build their fair share was removed. Shelter's chief executive, Polly Neate, has said Section 106 agreements between developers and councils are tragically one of the only ways we get social homes built these days, due to a lack of direct government investment. Rural Services Network, at its annual conference in September, called for the government to rethink proposals that will decimate affordable housing provision in rural areas. We know that the anticipated increase in housing numbers in this area will not see a proportionate increase in affordable housing. Those members who, like me, attend our affordable housing panel heard last week our registered providers' fears for the future of affordable housing, particularly in rural areas, where the numbers built are now almost always routinely reduced according to the viability requirements. And the viability requirements, I will remind you, 20% profit for the builders. Eric Pickles, the first planning secretary in the coalition government, used to deride Labour's Soviet tractor-style top-down regional housing targets, and he was very proud of having abolished them. But this proposed system sees targets imposed from Whitehall, even further from Labour's regional strategies, were from the local communities purported to be at the heart of the reforms. And finally, what next? Decisions by executive fiat? Councils simply becoming regional administration centres for Whitehall with centrally appointed leadership? Sounds something like China would do, or perhaps it's already closer to home than we think. Entrenching inequalities of power. To remove localism and to introduce this new approach would be a complete and utter disaster in the eyes of many. I second this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Lomax. I understand Councillor Charntley, you're going to respond to it.
Yes, I am, Chairman. I thank the new councillors for putting this motion before council. I don't think we need to debate it at great length because we're largely in agreement with what you're suggesting. It's also interesting to note, I mean, I take the points that Councillor Lomax has just raised. I read somewhere in the last couple of days that in the last few years, if these proposed changes to planning had been in place, there's at least 30,000 affordable homes wouldn't have been built. And and this is not something to which any of us can wholeheartedly subscribe. So, yeah, we are generally in support of the view that there are some good ideas for goals in some of this white paper, but the means set out in the white paper to achieve them are just not appropriate. And so the response is being prepared along those lines. The only thing I would like to suggest, Chairman, is, and I would like to make a formal proposal, that we amend very slightly the wording of the motion, which is in 3 parts, you'll notice. We therefore ask this council, etc., etc. And rather than saying responds fully to the white paper, etc., we'd like to say that it should agree with, via strategy group, a full response. In other words, there should be a discussion of a full response to the white paper at strategy group. And that secondly, that it shouldn't be the chief executive who writes to the Minister of State. As has already been pointed out, this is a political matter, and so it should be the leader of the council who writes to the Secretary of State to say that this will not do. And also to write to the local Member of Parliament in line with our agreed response set out above. I can, in a few minutes, if necessary, Chairman, give you the formal wording of my amendment, but that's the gist of it. And of course, we would wish to share all these responses with all members. Members have already had the opportunity to look at the response because it's part of strategy group papers and they're now available to anybody on the website. So I hope that the proposers of the motion will be encouraged by what I've said, that we are largely in support of it. And I would like, for the sake of the clerk to the meeting, to suggest that the amendments formally are as follows: that in the first part of the response, we should delete the words respond fully and substitute agrees via strategy group a full response. That we should, in part 2, delete the words chief executive and substitute leader of the council. And later on in that part, add to the end, expressing our concerns in line with the agreed response set out above. We need to make sure that we show everybody that we are consistent in ourselves. I think we need to add an S in the third one so that the council shares these responses with all members. Those are my proposed amendments, Chairman.
Thank you indeed, Councillor Chandler. Is it right Councillor Osborne's going to second these?
I'm hoping so.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Yeah, I formally second. I agree with everything that's been said. In fact, I would go further. I would only go further because I, like a few members of this council, have read in detail the proposals, and I think they're terrible. When I first started, we used to deal with 90% of the applications, and now we deal with less than 10% of the applications. And I used to joke at planning committee that very soon the government will allow applicants to purchase a planning permission from the post office. It was meant to be funny, but I'm afraid it's getting close to that. So yes, I'm supporting a lot of what's been said. I'm supporting the proposal, but I do believe that there are many people on this council that aren't as well up on the new planning proposals as Councillor Chandler and myself are, and also the proposals of the proposal rather. So it is better that we go to strategy group, we get an officer's report, it is debated, questions from people that don't understand the planning system, that we're able to make sensible comments, which I'm sure the comments that have been made have been sensible, but perhaps even more sensible comments, and they get to the right person, the politicians, and we completely oppose what they're attempting to do. No doubt it'll happen as in the past, and over the years, the government will do what they want to do. But I formally second, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Osborne. Councillor Harris, you heard those amendments. Are you willing to accept those amendments? Because clearly, if you get agreement on this.
Yes, Chair, I'm happy with those amendments. I would just add, I would encourage, I think Councillor Osborne makes a good point that I know it's not everybody's area of interest or indeed focus, but they are quite fundamental areas of change. So I would just urge other councillors to get familiar with the proposals that are being made, and indeed make sure that you do review and get close to and comment on any recommendations that are made by the strategy group. So yes, I'm happy with the amendments.
Thank you. And Councillor Lomax?
Yes, Chairman, I'm very happy to accept those amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Deed. So to everybody then, are we happy to agree the amended motion? Bearing in mind we have a strategy group meeting next week. Oh, sorry, my apologies, got some speakers. I do apologise. Councillor Dabbs.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Not much to add. I did have communication from a resident, and I actually promised him that I would raise his concerns at the meeting. I think Councillor Harris has already touched on them, but I'll just go through them briefly. This resident was very concerned at the wildlife decline and environmental impacts, and that any planning changes should enhance environmental protection and promote sustainability and carbon neutrality. I actually did wade through the white paper. It's not an easy read, and I think it's for those who are perhaps have a great deal of experience and expertise in this area. But some things that jumped out and concerned me. The use of the word beauty. Developments need to be beautiful and so on. And it just strikes me that the plan is to bring in loads of subjective ideas into this. How can you say that planning should be accepted because it is beautiful? One person's eye of beauty is not another person's. But there we go, and I'm glad the strategy will actually debate this. I did pick up something from the white paper, which I think is applicable for this council. Section 1.18 on page 18. Expect design guidance and codes to be prepared locally and be based on genuine community involvement rather than meaningless consultation. Thank you very much. I shall be voting for this one.
Thank you, Councillor Dabbs. Councillor Brown.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, assuming that the motion has now been incorporated into the amendment has been incorporated into the substantive motion, I'll make some general comments. Councillor Harris insinuated at the opening of his remarks that this was somehow an issue that united the Conservative Party with the Conservative government. I think any student of recent political history will know that what a Conservative government wishes to do is not necessarily what the Conservative Party wishes to do. And events in Parliament highlighted that very clearly when the last Conservative Prime Minister stood up to criticise the current Conservative Prime Minister, saying that, and I quote, "The problem with these proposals, the problem with this algorithm on housing numbers, is that it doesn't guarantee a single extra home being built, and far from levelling up, it forces more investment into London and the South. That is a huge problem with proposals that are meant to enhance and improve the planning system. I think that by stripping out democratic involvement at the crucial stage on individual planning applications would be a travesty. We know from experience within this council that the level of public engagement at the strategic plan stage is not sufficient to inform judgments on individual planning applications further down the line. So as amended, I'm more than happy to support Councillor Harris's motion, and I'm grateful to him and to Councillor Lomax for bringing this to council this evening.
You're muted again, Chris.
Can you hear me now, Mike?
Yes, you can.
Okay, thank you. Right, so thank you for that, Adam. I don't think any more speakers. we have got a problem actually with our polling system at the moment. So I was going to, sorry, we're sorted now. Okay, I'm told we're sorted now. So we can now, are there any other speakers first? Any other speakers on the amended motion? If not, can we go to the vote, please? We're going to the vote. We have 20 seconds to cast your vote.
You've got 20 seconds now.
Now, yeah, it's in front of you on the screen.
It's 100%.
100% in favour?
In favour, yeah. Can you see it?
I can't see it now. No. Okay. But 100% in favour?
Yeah.
So it's agreed in NEMCOM. Thank you much indeed, everyone. Thank you. And thanks for everyone for that satisfactory conclusion.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, we now move on to reports of committees. Are you happy those are agreed? It's just for information, actually. So we move on to the next item now. So that's agreed. I just want to explain, councillors, because we're now going to a substantive item regarding the new school, how I intend to play this evening. I want to take item 10 first. That's the S&I feedback from the S&I committee. And then we move into item 9 on the recommendation 1, which is on page 67. And then immediately after that, we then move on to recommendation SG 4503 on the secondary school consultation responses. So the idea is we get it all in compact into one area, one session. Are members happy with that in principle?
Yes, agreed.
Thank you. Okay, so I hand over now to Councillor Wesley to report back on the S&I discussion on this. Councillor Wesley.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, I do think it's the most sensible way to go. The decision on the proposal for the building of a new school on Eastern Way was called in by Councillor Wendy Randall and Councillor Lomax. And the means of doing that was actually to send it to the S&I committee to debate the issue and look at the issues raised by the two councillors that called that in. The essence of that is as per the report that I'm sure councillors have all looked at and read, and what came out of the S&I meeting was that indeed the S&I committee did feel that all aspects of the proposal hadn't been looked at in full in the original presentation to the strategy group. And the questions raised by the call-in should be looked at and those questions answered. And that is what you actually have in front of you in the report. The S&I committee asked officers and the portfolio holder to look at those questions, review what's been said and provide answers to councillors in order that they can make a decision here tonight, in essence. So that's what we have in front of us, and hopefully that forms part of some of the debate in tonight's discussions. So I'll hand it back over to the chair, because this report is really information only for councillors, to help councillors actually make their substantive decision on the transfer of land to the Secretary of State for the building of the school. If there's any questions on that, only too willing to take them.
Well, thank you, Councillor Wes. You just confirmed why I'm taking it now, so the members have got that before they made the decision. Are you happy that we note the report, councillors?
Agreed.
Agreed. Happy, Councillor Wesley?
Happy, yes.
Thank you, indeed. Thank you. That's agreed. Then we note the report. We now move on to substantive item on page 67. New secondary school in Daventry. This is going to be a recommendation proposed by David James. Councillor James. I know, I'm doing one after the other. We can't do them together. We said them to do them one time.
Thank you, Chairman. This recommendation comes out of a meeting of the July strategy group, which made that particular recommendation. I think it's very important to note, and I mention that here at this stage, the Council's limited role in the provision of a third secondary school in Daventry. That is to say, the Secretary of State, through the Secretary of State's company charged with finding a site, asked the Council to make a site for a school available. The Department for Education had already undertaken an impact assessment. That won't ever be published until after a decision is made. But it's also important to note not only that limitation in our role, it's important to note that it's only the first step in a journey which contains a number of hurdles to be jumped. First of all, should Council decide this evening to accept this recommendation, then of course the first step will be planning permission, where all of the matters, site specifics, and indeed access, the whole things that are specific to that site and its use as a school will be debated and a decision made by the planning committee. And no one can foretell what the result of that will be. Secondly, even if planning permission is granted, the Tove Learning Trust will have to carry out a Section 10 consultation under the Academies Act 2010 on the proposals for a school. And if planning permission is granted and the proposed opening date is known, a formal impact assessment will have to be undertaken, a second formal impact assessment will have to be undertaken by the Secretary of State or the Minister charged with that duty. And it's only then, after all those hurdles have been crossed, will the Secretary of State enter into legal arrangements for the provision of this school through the proposers, the Tove Learning Trust. So that's an important thing to consider. Now, another matter which has got bogged down in this debate and misunderstood is that the debate is not about numbers of places per se, although that certainly will be an issue in a few years' time. In fact, in 3 to 5 years' time, the West Northants Shadow Committee have said we would need to have a third secondary school, the executive of the West Northants Shadow Committee. So that's a matter for another day. But it's really about the quality of the educational experience and the level of achievement, and in particular, the level of underperformance of the existing secondary schools in Daventry compared with their peer grouping. And that came about as a result, the Department of Education's conclusion that a third secondary school is approved to address the educational standards in Daventry and thus improve the children's life chances. Now, Tove Learning Trust operates a mix of schools, some in very deprived areas, much more deprived than that part of Daventry where there is a level of deprivation. So they have experience of dealing with all types of schools, as well as operating on a more local basis, the Spon School at Towcester. So they're well informed on matters relating to carrying out educational improvement. Now, here are two issues which members need to confront. First of all, this site was identified in the countryside for development in the Settlements and Countryside Local Plan, which was recently adopted. And I look at the plan and it says here, EC3 land to the north and west of Daventry Town Centre is allocated to the following mix of uses: a residential, office, hotel, leisure, restaurants, pub, and health. So there you have it. It's a site that's been held for development and it's identified for development in the local plan. The second thing is this: the corporate strategic plan has a goal of seeking to secure a third secondary school for Daventry. And guess what? All members of this council voted for the adoption of those two documents without dissent. Without dissent. And it's fairly recent. Now bear that in mind this evening. Now, I come to another point which has been largely misunderstood, in that is that we've carried out a consultation in the meaning of the consultations that we normally carry out when we say we're going to do a consultation. This was a legal...
Excuse me, David, you've just run over 5 minutes now. I was going to give you a minute warning. So can you sum up very quickly, please, sir?
Yes, I will now. This was a legal procedure under Section 123 of the Local Government Act and Section 233 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990. So it was a consultation in terms of consultation in inverts with a small c. It was a statutory notice inviting objections. And we got objections, 219 of them.
Thank you, David. I have to cut you off there, sir. I'm terribly sorry. You're making the proposition. I did say 5 minutes. It's going to be applied to everybody. So I'm going to move on to your seconder now. That's Councillor Brown.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm very happy to second these proposals tonight because I don't believe that there's a single person on this virtual call who didn't come into local politics in order to make a positive difference for the places that we represent, who didn't want to make sure that the places where we grew up, the places where we live, become places of greater opportunity, of greater beauty, and better places to live our lives. So it's for that reason that I want to see these proposals go forward this evening. Councillor James has set out very eloquently the fact that this is but a first step on a quite long and arduous journey. There will be many safeguards, many checks, many impact assessments to come to ensure that if and when this school is eventually built, it is done so in a manner that addresses the needs not both of current residents, but also of the generations that will come to serve at that school further down the line. Now, I want to say a little bit about opinion, because we'll hear a lot tonight, I believe, from certain members about public opinion, about 97%, about X 100 or Y 100. And I want to set out very clearly that public opinion matters hugely. It matters considerably to every single person in local government when they come to form a judgment on the decision that they're going to take. But as the 18th century philosopher and parliamentarian Edmund Burke said, your representative fails instead of serving you if he sacrifices his judgment to your opinion. Now, Burke wasn't saying that opinions don't matter. He was in fact saying that they matter hugely, but that for the representative, the elected representative, they form just a part of the overall judgment that we have to make. We know from that consultation that there are concerns around the prospective building of this school. That is undeniable. Residents, I know, have written to the leader of the council, to Councillor Randall and others, setting out precisely what those concerns are. And I thank every single one of them for the concerns that they've set out. However, those concerns will have their time and their place to be addressed specifically and thoroughly, so that we know whether or not after this stage we wish to progress further with these plans. It is precisely because we have had a significant body of feedback that we know where we need to focus our attention once these plans start to progress through the subsequent stages of the system. However, I come back to my opening remark, which is that we are all here to enhance the chances of the future generations. We're all here to make the places where we live and the places where we represent better places to live, to work, to grow up. And in education, we see the epitome of that sentiment. It is the be all and end all of life chances for the next generation. And for us to pass up, potentially, a £25 million investment in the future of Daventry's children, I believe would be negligent at best, when in fact we have an opportunity to make sure that Daventry can be better and can be a place of opportunity. The opportunity may not come again. It certainly won't come again in this form. And I hope that members will allow these plans to progress towards further scrutiny, towards further progression, and that we can do our jobs as councillors to serve the people whom we represent.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Please use your blue hand if you wish to speak. Councillor Ritchie. Councillor Ritchie on mute.
My apologies.
Okay.
I'm saying that, you know, every if Daventry grows, we'll reach a point in which we need another school. But at the moment, we're nowhere near that point. And as has been, the point has already been made, that the argument here is not about the need for student places at the moment. The argument is a view that our existing schools simply are not good enough. As a consequence, people will send children outside the town for schooling. But where is the evidence? The officers claim they've given us up-to-date information on the schools, but according to the school's head teachers, what has been provided, and I quote here, is incredibly out of date. Nothing is said about the progress that has been made in the last few years. Daintree has been rated good in all categories. An inspector's report has recognised significant progress at Parker and expected it to achieve good in an inspection that is led by COVID. 86% of sixth formers, and remember the sixth formers are a relatively recent addition to these schools, 86% were awarded university places, 9% got apprenticeships, and all the rest got jobs. It's been predicted that reaching at least the national average for maths and English will be achieved during the year. We've got good schools in Daventry. We don't need to bring in other ones. I just don't know why they were not consulted and allowed to speak for themselves in this. Others have approached them about the information that we need. For years, we've been claiming as a council that we give support to local schools, but instead of talking to them, it strikes me we're simply kicking them in the teeth. We don't know why parents send their children outside Daventry, because we've never asked them, and not having asked them, we have no basis for knowing that that problem, if it indeed is a problem, that problem will be solved by a new school. It may make no difference whatsoever. Will it raise standards? Well, you know, some argue that competition, yes, pushes up standards. The reality is that competition is divisive. It creates losers as well as winners. And in this case, there is a great danger that the losers are going to be many hundreds of young people in Daventry whose education is disrupted, perhaps at a time that they're moving towards important exams. They are going to be the losers if things go wrong. Councillor James makes the point that, you know, we're only the providers of the site, and whether any school raises standards or not is a matter for the Department of Education. Well, that's not a view that I can accept. I don't regard us being merely property agents here. We're here as councillors, elected to represent the interests of our constituents. And if we're not convinced that a proposal is in their best interest, then we've got to oppose it or change it. If you allow this to go ahead, and if it were to lead to the messy collapse of an existing school, this council would at least be morally responsible for the disruption and damage to people's education. Now, our job is to represent the people of Daventry. We can't always give them what they want, but we've got to listen to them. And what residents tell us, that they want to keep the field at Eastern Way green and open for all for leisure and relaxation.
A minute to go, Councillor Ritchie.
Okay. A green space near the town centre is good for the environment, good for the climate, and it is good for us. But the most important argument is that the people of Daventry want it. You'll have seen petitions that I have circulated by email. I believe the field contributes a lot of character and ambience of the town. Others have suggested there are things you could do on it with water pools and so on. I'm open to all of these suggestions, but what people want is it is essentially green and a place for recreation. We've discussed a bit the site that was originally identified in the northeast extension.
Can you wrap up, please, Councillor Ritchie? Can you wrap up, please? Thank you.
I don't know why we can't give the developer just a little bit more time, because any threat that we will lose a school is quite nonsense. The Department of Education has got a responsibility for making sure all areas of the country have got decent schools, and that would apply to children in Daventry as much as any other town.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. Councillor John Shepherd.
Chairman, thank you. Councillor James has identified a 4-stage process by which transfer is to be achieved. Stage 4, after Planning Commission, TOE assessment, impact assessment, stage 4, he talked about legal arrangements. I presume, and can he confirm, that whilst we're proposing to agree today to agree that the land should be disposed of, the transfer, the legal title, is actually part of that stage 4 process in some considerable time ahead. And secondly, does he have the best guess on when that is likely to be?
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor James, can you answer those points?
I'll try. Well,
or do you want the officers to answer it for you?
It might be better if the officers answered it.
Okay. Simon Bowers.
Thank you, Chairman. The heads of terms that were agreed or set out as strategy group, and which we are preparing the legal documentation on the basis of, would result in the transfer of the land being triggered once planning permission was granted. But if the school did not proceed, the land would then be transferred back to what would then be West Northampton Council. I was going to say the District Council for a moment. And in terms of timing, probably about a year is a reasonable estimate.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Guildford, can you please drop your hands when you've spoken, please? Thank you. Councillor Guildford. You're on, Jo. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, it would be remiss of me not to speak, being environmental portfolio holder, and I would draw members' attention to the original strategy report, page 70 specifically. Now, Daventry District Council has always been known as a green authority. We are very well respected. And that points out, as has been mentioned this evening, that the land is already identified in policy EC3 of the Settlements and Countryside Local Plan to be developed.
Oh, that's...
And now that could be developed in full. The way I see this proposal this evening is to help protect that land. Because with the proposal put before us having a school and retaining some open spaces where there will be sports activities that may well be open to the community to use, we do not know. But this proposal is a positive with regard to decisions that have already been made, which could see the land developed more fully. We all know we're going to a unitary authority. They have a budget envelope, which they have to meet. They will be looking at assets available to sell, to maximise, to get the most monies they can and develop land appropriately. So I would add, as I say, that this is positive and I will be supporting it because from an environmental perspective, the decision has been made to develop already. This will help protect part of that site to enable it to remain green and open to the community. The only other thing I would add is the 1,000 children that go out of the district at the moment to other schools. Again, from an environmental perspective, there's a lot of fuel used. It's not good for the environment. Hopefully those children will stay within the district, and that will be another environmental benefit. So we've heard various quotes this evening, and I will end on a quote, one that I've used on many occasions from JFK, that if we look only to the past and the present, you look into the past and the present, we miss the future. This proposal enables us to retain some of the open space on that site for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Guildford. Councillor Dabbs, I apologise, I should have called you a bit earlier. My apologies. Councillor Dabbs.
On that basis, Chair, I thank you for your indulgence and your apology, but here we go. Well, Chair and members, here we are. We're about to vote on what I would see as the most contentious issue that this council may face before its demise next year. We've said a lot already on this proposal, both at this meeting and in previous ones. I'll try not to take up too much time, try not to repeat too much. I'm not going to dwell on whether we need a new school. I think that's for other people to be thinking about, the Department for Education. Personally, I can't actually see that it's needed now, but of course we need to plan for the future, and who knows what will happen in the future. So enough said there. The issue is the use of the green space to the side of Easton Way. I'm assuming that all councillors, even if not local to the town, are aware of the space, since it's just by the council offices in Lodge Road. I want to examine how this administration has reached its conclusion that the field should be developed with a school, and whether the arguments are justified. Part of me says that whatever I say tonight, I'll just be ignored, and you'll all just vote this in the normal way that you do, including all those local members who might have had issues at the original strategy meeting. And you'll be taking the approach that you're all right and everybody else is wrong. I did think maybe I should just blow a raspberry and sit down in our virtual meeting, because it'd be as effective as speaking on. But I'm going to speak on anyway, because we need to know the arguments. Let's see the legitimacy. We've had it argued by the leader that you have electoral backing for the proposal. I said that it's not actually been tested since 2018 and since elections have been cancelled, apart from the by-elections last year. The Abbey North by-election is actually important. Councillor Harrington-Carter did win. We at the Labour Party had an appalling result due to special circumstances, I feel. But what we also got was a turnout under 18%. That's an appalling turnout. And is that actually an electoral mandate? Unfortunately, our laws say that it is. A win is a win, whatever the margin. And I may revert to that. So, was provision of educational facilities on Easton Way part of the electoral promise? I can't find any mention on the electoral leaflets, and I can send copies to members if they need a reminder. What did Councillor Harrington-Carter promise? Interestingly, to seek out your opinions and views and to ensure that your voice is heard. I will work hard to maintain our green spaces and community areas, which was one of 3 campaign pledges, none of which mentioned education. Well, Councillor, not terribly impressed. So, the evidence from the sole local election in Daventry Town is that residents did not vote to put a school on Easton Way. So shall we go back a little bit more? Elections in 2018, the last meaningful ones. Who said it's been a long-term priority to improve the local education offer? I will continue to campaign for improvements. Well, I agree with the aspirations. They're absolutely fine. And it even comes from the pen of our much missed ex-councillor Colin Poole. Another candidate said, I want to encourage excellence in all forms of learning. I will represent the views of the local residents and ensure opportunities are met. And this was my own good opponent, Tim Wilson. And they are good words. Problem is, Chair, members, both these candidates were rejected by the electorate, with both myself and ex-councillor Ramsey being elected instead. And what was one of the reasons for the electoral success? We opposed the canal on Easton Way. It was a hot topic at that point and afterwards. And I finally draw your attention to, which is a Tory leaflet, but not candidate specific, which stated near the end, the successes and aims for education. Noted some successes, Northampton College, Monksmoor and Hill Schools, failed to mention the UTC and its failure. But the
minute to go, Councillor Dabbs.
How much?
A minute.
Can I have 2 minutes like Councillor James had, please?
Okay.
Thank you. But DDC was working with EACT that run Parkers and DSLV. And you don't seem to be working with them now. And at the end of this section, your justification. We're also working on plans for an outstanding school to open up a new secondary school in Daventry Town. And the best bit is, we found them a suitable site and are working with the Education Skills Funding Agency to help get the new school open. We're hoping for the first thing to take September 29. So, suitable site. Is it on Eastern Way? I doubt it. It would have to be a floating school. It'd have to float on the water of the canal, or it would be very small. So, don't think that's a starter. You claim it's in the corporate plan. And this is based, according to the Chief Executive, on an email to Councillor Ritchie, on the resident survey. The results of the survey are very interesting, but do not support the need for a new school.
A minute to go.
Mentions broad agreement with proposed priorities, improving the business community learning and skills. Questions 20 and 21 out of 29, and at the end, and done with a very, very leading question. Would you like this, that, and the other? And of course, our residents wanted this, that, and the other. And since I am short of time, I will have to wrap up now. But basically, you've planned it all on leading questions. Would you like sugar on everything? Yes, please, we want it all. We don't all get everything that we want, but when offered something, you will say you want it. So it's absolutely no evidence whatsoever. We also had the survey, which I don't agree with Councillor James. It wasn't a request for objections, it was a request for views. So members, let's vote against this. Let's have a proper debate and public engagement. We've had a lot happen in recent months with COVID that we need to look again at the town plans, which we're doing.
Thank you, Councillor Dabbs. I've given you 6 minutes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harris.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Now, those of us that are not convinced by this proposition at all, I want to just make a few points, if I may, some general points. All of us want the best for young people and their futures. And I think that an assumption should not be made that because we're not convinced or we are determined to vote against this proposition means that we don't have their best interests at heart. So I think it's really important to flag that. There seems to be a general presumption that if you're not in favour of it, you're not in favour of young people and their futures. That's complete nonsense, I'm afraid. Now, I was hoping to talk a little bit about finances tonight, but unfortunately, I'm not in a position to do so. But we all know that councils, all of our councils locally, are struggling and will struggle. Coronavirus, lack of funding, lack of investment from central government, we all have financial challenges. South Northants just this week, I believe, are talking about a challenge of 620,000+ already. They hope to recover the situation. I don't know what our situation is. I don't know what the situation is for Northampton Borough or for County Council at this stage. But it does seem very strange that when we are facing financial problems, we are quite happy to gift a piece of land away that has a value of £4.5 million or £5 million. I accept that that may not come to fruition because that sounds like there are lots of stage gates to go through. But I can't add up those two things together. I can't keep hearing of the significant investment that will flow back in, 23 million, 25 million, whatever that might be. If there is that sort of investment available, then £4.5 million to even purchase the land wouldn't be a bad idea. And actually that could be £4.5 million or £5 million that would go some way towards our green agenda, which we know is a major issue for all of us to face. So I can't quite square that one. The third point, who decides on who actually gets the job of building this school? Now, it seems to me that all the buck is passed back to the education authority or back to government. That seems to be washing our hands. Who has decided, for instance, that TOVE are the right people to do the best job and for the best value money? That's not clear to me. My final 2 points, I really am finding it very difficult to keep hearing about is the silent majority that counts effectively. So if you don't say anything, you don't come forward, it assumes that you agree everything. That again is just not accurate, and we should not make those assumptions or indeed put the message out there that that is in fact what happens. Now, the final point is Daventry is a large district. We will always have situations where people will not travel to schools. The area that I represent is some 15 or 16 miles away. It's the other side of the district. It's highly unlikely that people from this side of the district are likely to be sending their children over to Daventry. So again, we should not make the assumption that you build the school and they will come. There are going to be challenges, issues, and just geography that will get in the way of some of those issues. So they're just the points I wanted to make. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you much indeed, Councillor Harris. That's done very succinctly, if I may say so. Before I ask the leader to respond, can I just ask Simon Baz to answer your point about who builds the school? Simon?
Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. I think Councillor Harris elided two issues: who runs the school and who builds the school. It might be helpful if I briefly answered both.
Yes, that'd be very helpful. Thank you.
In terms of who runs the school first, which is Toad Learning Trust, the Department for Education runs rounds of applications for the free school programme. Various organisations put proposals in. They go through a process of assessing whether the department believes they're the right thing to do, and then they get first stage approval. That's where Toad is at the moment. Toad put a proposal in to open a new secondary school in Daventry. The DFE has given its initial approval, hence we're at the point we're at. In terms of who physically builds the school, the department, through an entity known as the Education and Skills Funding Agency, runs a series of framework contracts where they package up maybe 6, maybe 8, maybe 10 new school builds of various kinds and tender those to get reasonable value for money in the exercise. So the answer is DFE in both parts, but in a rather different way. Hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you very much indeed. I noticed Councillor Randall's put a hand up and she hasn't spoken to tonight. Do you want to speak now, Councillor Randall?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Chair,
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
I was waiting till the end just so as I could listen to see what points people were making, because I obviously didn't want to repeat myself. You know, a lot of councillors will know that I'm very socially, I'm very active on social media, always out and about gathering people's views, because like I always say, I am elected to be their voice. There has been very strong voices, lots of voices for saying, why aren't we aware of this? I said, well, there was a consultation. Where was the consultation? I said, well, as per usual, our consultations aren't really sort of like, you don't really get out there. I've often said get out there amongst, you know, the shoppers and whatever else, but or put banners up or something, which we haven't. All I can say is, obviously I've spoken many times about this. I feel I am so angry and upset about what you are trying to do, because I cannot understand the logic. You are effectively saying that the education, the 2 schools that we've got aren't good enough, and you want to bring in a 3rd school, which is needed, but could strongly undermine a current school, which could force it to close. So you've got a scenario of you're going to take a very valuable piece of green space, which no one wants to see gone in Daventry that I've come across, of the hundreds of people that I've spoken to. And if you go out tonight and you knock on every single door and you say, do you want something built on that green space, a school built on that green space, you will get about 97% saying no, because people do not want to see that built off. Even though it's in that you keep quoting about, it is in that plan. It is. There is things in that plan and there is leisure in that plan. And when the canal fell through, I think people thought that that was going to be used for a leisure facility. I think they felt that that was going to be somewhere that could actually have been built to bring people in. So you might have actually had some sort of water space there. You might have had a putting green. You might have had hard standing for the fair and the circus to come. You know, that would have become the heart of this town. And I think that is what the townspeople were expecting. The education in Daventry, I called that in originally because that report is outdated. That report is still outdated. It was not amended. Had Councillor Auger quoting 1,000 pupils leave this town. I don't know where you got that from, Councillor Auger, because I've been in touch with the local authority and I have asked how many children that actually fall into the catchment of those schools leave the town. And it has been drastically decreasing year on year. That figure you quoted is 4 years out of date, which was what the problem was right in the very beginning when I said that the report is outdated. That's why I wanted, and that was one of my questions on the call-in, that I wanted actually that the officers go to the schools and they actually find out what the issue is. But we're back to you build on Eastern Way. That's if it goes ahead, because I don't think the local authority are in favour of this. So, and I believe that they need to be. I am going to put in a freedom of information to the local authority to find out where their position is on this. But when we've got schools that are bursting at the seams in Northampton and Corby, I don't know why suddenly the Department of Education would say, oh, let's go to Daventry, build a new school when we've already got 500 spaces available. No, I can't see it. But if you do build a new school with this money that's being given,
minutes ago, Councillor Randall. Yep.
And you force one of those schools to close, we are then back to 2 schools. So when we actually then need the 3rd school, like you keep saying, where is the money going to come from? Because the unitary will then not have that money to build that new school. So we will then end up with 2 schools, taking away a valuable piece of space, a 3rd school needed, no money in the pot. Then what? And as for people leaving town, you've got no idea why people leave the town to be educated anywhere else, because nobody has actually bothered to ask the parents. Nobody has asked the parents that attend the schools. Nobody has asked the parents where they actually leave the schools. So you've not thought that that somebody might work in Rugby and actually Granny might live in, they might live in Barbie and she might live in Rugby, and it's much easier for that child to go back to Granny's house after school and the parent pick them up. You've not looked at how many children go off to public school, because I can tell you there's quite a few of them. You've not looked at who goes off to grammar school. So you've really, from when I called in, I'll also be taking it to the Ombudsman, because I do not feel that that call-in was not handled correctly. We've become a laughing stock to the fact that on the LGA, they're actually going to run an issue now on call-in, because they could not believe that actually we did not really know how to do a call-in. I never even got notification that my call-in had been accepted.
Thank you, Councillor Randall. Been very generous here.
If you think that you are doing the best for the people of this town, you honestly think wrong. And when it comes to election, put on your leaflet that actually this is what you wanted, and let people decide or what you want for this.
Thank you, Councillor Randall. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Can we have Councillor Lomax, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I should be relatively brief.
Thank you.
When this first came to strategy group, I thought the report was very poor. I thought it was very poorly constructed, and I thought it was full of speculation. And I have to say that I still remain against this proposal. There are 2 reasons for it, but first of all, can I say I'm disturbed and disappointed by the repeated assumption in the notes which have been provided this evening, pages 71 onwards, that the Department for Education, Whitehall, knows best. Does it? Does it really? The only good thing I've heard this evening is that in fact there are going to be a number of impact assessments which actually will be seen by us. The idea that in fact they've already done one and we haven't any access to it at all, I think is disgraceful. However, I just want to repeat what I've said before. My 2 main objections to this are on location. I think it's in the wrong place. Its proximity to 3 other schools, and we mustn't forget that Falconer's Hill is there as well, and then Southbrook, half a mile away, a 4th school. I think the concentration in that relatively small area is far too much. And I think it's naive to think that traffic will not increase. People will go by car. Children will be brought by car. So the congestion, and in this council for years, councillors have said how difficult Ashby Road is, for instance. They've been saying it for years, dangerous road, and it's just going to increase the traffic. The other reason that I'm very much against it is that on the question of need, yes, we are going to need a third secondary school, but as this school apparently will not be available for some years anyway, why can we not wait until we can build one where our extensions are, which would be the sensible place to put it, where the children are in their community, in their locality. I'm sorry, but I'm still against this proposal. There's so much speculation about the whole thing. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Lomax. The leader, Councillor Orgu, you want to respond now, sir?
Thank you. And it's been really, you know, people say that consultation doesn't work. I think it's been reinformed this debate, and there are strong views and opinions on either side. There is a bit of politicking going on, but I suppose we're in politics. I would want to correct Councillor Randall. She inferred that I may have made up this 1,000. That came from official reports that I read from this council with regard to that. So I didn't make it. And didn't just come out of my head. I got it from the reports that she was sent and I was sent with regard to how many pupils leave the town.
New figures this week.
Excuse me, I didn't interrupt you, Councillor Randall. Please be respectful. I would like to thank Councillor Randall for, I thought it was a masterstroke of allowing me to respond to directly to many of our residents, maybe not many, but I think 10 or 11, and to be able to have email correspondence with them. Some of the correspondence was really good. It was good to listen, to explain the alternative point of view, and of course we will differ, but there is a passion here, a passion to do the best for our people, to do the best for our children. We all want to do that. Whatever side of the argument we're on, we all want to do it. And to say that one side think they're right and the other side think they're right is blatantly obvious. We all think we're doing the right for the people of Daventry, and most importantly, for the children. I certainly spent 30 years protecting them, putting myself in harm's way. And we will continually do the best. Nobody's being malicious. No one's being unkind. Whether you want the school or you don't want the school, we are all genuinely wanting the best. And I hope we come to the right result. To sit on our hands, I don't think it's acceptable. That is the old politics of just dither and delay. What we need to do is to make a choice, allow this land to go to Secretary of State, and all the checks and balances, the risk assessment, the impact assessment, planning application, whether it gets built or not, it's certainly not a foregone conclusion. But doing nothing is totally unacceptable. I think Stephen Dabbs summed it up with regard to, we do need to plan and act for the future. We do need to do that. It may not be the right place, but that will be decided through due process, not by us coming up with ideas now. Let's test it. Let's test the policy. Let's test the application. Let's test the idea. Let's test and have the assessments done. The answer will come, and we will do the right thing, whether the school gets built or not. But to do nothing, Chair, is really totally unacceptable and abdicates our responsibility to plan for the people of Daventry for the future. Let's give it a chance, see where it goes. If it is to be built, it will be the right thing, because all the balances would have been passed.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Micklewright.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wonder if I could just ask a very quick question. What happens to the proposal to build the school in the event that we do not transfer the land to the Secretary of State? Do they have some sort of backup plan, another site that they would fall back on, or does the whole proposal fall?
Simon Bowers, could you answer that, please?
Thank you, Leader. That question was addressed in the July report. There is no other site that Locate Ed has been able to identify. It's not impossible. They might identify a site in the future, as was noted in the July report, but at the moment there is nothing.
Thank you, Simon. Does that answer your question, Councillor Micklewright? Thank you. I think Councillor Randall hand's still up. You've already spoken, Councillor Randall. So I can't hear you, Councillor Randall. You're on mute.
Sorry. I was just going to say, obviously, you know, the majority of people do believe this is in the wrong location. We did believe that it was going to be on the North East Zoo. I think the people of the town would have been happy if it was on the North East Zoo. But if this collapses on this site, does that mean we will not get it on the North East Zoo? Because I think all of our understanding originally was that where the location was. Now I've heard the developers are dragging their heels, but I don't want to lose it.
On that point of clarification, some of us can answer that point. Councillor Reynolds just asked.
This free school has got initial approval. Without a site, it will not proceed. It's really as simple as that.
Thank you.
It's like on the North East Zoo, nobody knows.
Thank you, Simon. Well, I think we had a fair debate on that. I want to move to the vote now, if I can. Is that Councillor Rich? You already spoken, of course. Is it a quick question or is it a point of clarification?
No, I would like to move an amendment.
Oh, you want to move an amendment now?
Yeah.
Okay, what's the amendment, Councillor Ritchie?
The amendment, this is looking at the recommendation on page 67 of the papers.
Yes.
What I would like to insert is in the second line,
yes,
2/3 of the way along, the report is provisionally approved. Full stop after approved. Then continuing, no action should be taken to dispose of the site for a period of up to 3 months to allow the developers of the Northeast extension to see if they can provide a more suitable site. It can then continue the proposal, I think that's the right word, the bit subject to consideration of any other objections and things to make sure that is still included.
Okay, Councillor Richard, do you have a seconder for this amendment? No, doesn't appear you do, sir. Okay, so going back to Councillor James now. Sorry? Why haven't I got Councillor Dabbs again? Oh, he's now put his blue hand up. Thank you, Councillor Dabbs. You must put your blue hand up. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Leader, there wasn't much chance to do that. I'm very happy to second Councillor Ritchie's proposal, but I don't have anything to add at this point.
Thank you, Mr. D, sir. Thank you. Councillor James, do you want to respond to that as your amendment to your original proposal?
To the proposed amendment?
Yes.
Yes, well, I don't accept the proposed amendment. That's about dither and delay for reasons best known to the Labour councillors here. So I certainly wouldn't recommend that the motion be amended in that way at all.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor James. Councillor Brown.
Yep, thank you, Chairman. I fully concur with Councillor James on this. This is about delay, and delay for no good reason at that. Labour have representation on the strategy group. They've been making pretty much the same arguments throughout this debate that has been ongoing for some months now. And the proposed amendment could have been made at the strategy group. So it's not an appropriate amendment. I think everybody in this call, in this meeting, knows that time is of the essence, and that a 3-month delay would put in danger the considerable investment in the future of Daventry that the Department for Education has put on the table. So I concur with Councillor James, and I move that we reject this amendment.
Okay, so we have an amendment, which we have a proposal to reject. Can we move to a vote, please, on the amendment? Be on your screens very shortly.
Right, members, you've got 20 seconds starting now.
On the amendment.
On the amendment.
Yeah. Oh, Deanna's there. Nice to see you, Deanna.
So, Chairman, we've got 67 voting against and 67%, sorry, voting against, 30% in favour, and 3% abstention.
Thank you, Jeff Leach. That amendment's lost.
Chairman, can I just ask if we can have a name vote on this, please?
Why?
Because I think it's such an important issue. Nobody's, you don't mind the public knowing which way you voted. So I'm just asking, can we have a name vote?
I just checked. Normally that's done in advance, actually. Can we just have a constitutional vote? What's the Constitution say, Tony? So we need 1/3 of members to say we go to a recorded vote. So can we vote on that if you want to go to a recorded vote? Okay, that will be on your screen shortly, Wendy. Councillor Wendy.
Thank you.
Yeah. I can vote this one.
Members, you've got 20 seconds.
This is voting whether we have a recorded vote or not.
So, Chairman, it's 61% voting against and 29% in favour and 10% are abstaining.
Lost then, Councillor Randall.
Can I just have it noted? Can my group just be named then? Are we allowed to do that?
Yes, you can. Yeah, that's okay, Councillor Randall.
Thank you. Then, please. Thank you.
Thank you. So we now go back to the original recommendation before you, and we want to vote on this now. Thank you much indeed.
Oh, it's gone again.
Members, you have 20 seconds now. Okay, Chairman, that's 61% have voted in favour, 32% against, and 66% abstention.
16% abstention.
6%, sorry.
6%. Thank you much indeed. So that recommendation is carried. Thank you.
Chairman, can we just then capture the names of those who wish to have their votes recorded as being against?
Yes, please.
So if members could indicate by raising their hand that they're against, please. Could you indicate by raising the blue hand, the electronic hand, please?
Excuse me, Chairman. Are we are we now talking about the amendment? Or
No,
the
amendment's been lost, Councillor Lomax. This is about the original one. Yes.
The original.
Yeah.
The original one.
Yeah, that's what we just voted. That's what we just voted on. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
At the moment, we got four hands.
So that's Councillors Ritchie, Harris, Dabbs, and Pritchard.
And mine.
And Councillor Randall. So there's 5 named votes against.
I think also Councillor Lomax. Is that right, Lomax? Councillor Lomax?
Yes, she's not indicated,
yes.
But yes, and Councillor Lomax. That's
thank
6.
You. 6 and 6 against. Okay, thank you. They'll be recorded as against. Okay, thank you. So now I propose we move on to this. Getting a lot of feedback. I now propose we go to the second, as I said at the start, item SG 452003, new secondary school for damaging consultation responses. Councillor James.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I attended the S&I committee on the 22nd of September. Quite honestly, I thought it was farcical, really, but that's my own personal opinion. The report, of course, is on page 71 with the comments of Wendy Randall and the points she wished to raise, because the scrutiny committee voted.
This is actually, sorry, Councillor James, for interrupting. This is the actual item on the recommendations. We already covered the S&I report back, which Councillor Wesley did a brief overview on.
I just wanted to elaborate on that, but I'm quite happy to skip it.
Yeah. Thank you.
I was looking further really to say, except this, and I really do mean this. It's no good voting for something if you intend to campaign against it. Now, I know there is a number of people in this country who think that it's all right to do that. You vote for something and then you change your mind, you vote against it. And the Labour Party is a very good example of people who do this. We have, in recent years, in recent times, voted through a settlements and countryside local plan identifying the site at Eastern Way for development. We've also voted through a corporate plan which says that one of our goals is the need to provide a third secondary school. And yet, only months later, some people have decided that, oh, well, that's in the past. This concerns Eastern Way, and we get all these dubious criticisms about this proposal that has come through to Daventry District Council, and District Council it is, because that land belongs to the district, not just Daventry. And it's Daventry District children, especially those in the immediate catchment area, that would probably like to take advantage of a new school in Daventry. Time was when children from Newnham, Bagby, Weedon, Woodford, Hulse, Everton, and all points near to, probably Braunton as well, went into Daventry to school. How many of them do that now? So you see, if we were to vote against this tonight, if we were to do that, not only would it be, as Councillor Brown said, a very negligent decision at best, I say this, it would be hypocrisy at worst. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you indeed, Councillor James. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm keen to avoid too much repetition of previous arguments.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
All I would say is that I hope that my earlier comments about the ways in which we disagree weren't misconstrued, because I do firmly believe that we can all disagree on this issue whilst having the best of intentions for our residents. And, I don't think people should lose sight of that. So happy to second this, but I'll say no further because I've said all I wish to say.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. So that's a proposal and seconder. We're on item 45/2003. Any other? Councillor Randall.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll take offence to the way actually Councillor James has been this evening. It's been quite obnoxious. I've had messages come through to say, who is this man? You know, he's still not really understanding. You keep going back to original plans and what was on that original plan, and it wasn't a school. We all want what's best for the children of this town, and it all boils down to the wrong location. That's all. But like I say, there will be a lot more information coming forward. It'll be really interesting to see what happens. And what I really hope is that by choosing this site, which is totally the wrong site, you don't lose the site where it should have been, which is on a newer development. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you, Councillor Randall. Are there any other speakers on this item? If not, I suggest we move to the vote, please.
Councillor, do you have 20 seconds?
Thank you, Jebly.
Oh, come on.
The mic's on.
Right, Chairman, there are 66% voting in favour, 17% against, and 17% abstaining.
Thank you, Mr. Deed. So 60% in favour.
66.
66 and 17 and 17%.
Yeah.
17 against, 70% abstaining. Okay, so that's clearly a majority in favour of the recommendation. Thank you very much indeed, members. We now go back to item SG 44-2001, Public Spaces Protection Order. Councillor Hills.
Thank you, Chairman. Basically, not a lot to say on this. This replaces the current protection order, which runs out this October, and with a new one taking place actually from the 1st of November. The recommendations are there before you on page 68. So I don't intend to go through all of them. Nope. And you will see, if you refer to the previous details of the consultation which was carried out, the overwhelming support for the proposals, which enhances and adds value to the current protection order, was well supported. The public supported this, they were for it, and in turn, I ask for your support to add to the public support for this item. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Hills. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd be very happy to second this recommendation. Nothing to add.
Thank you indeed. Are there any speakers? None shown at the moment. Oh, there's his blue hand's appeared now. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Chair. I've just been looking through the minutes of the strategy group meeting. I think there was something said there. Somebody asked how many people had been, I say convicted, but that's probably the wrong word in this case with a, with a public spaces order. But how many people have actually been found to offend? And as far as I recall, officers will correct me if I'm wrong, but somebody said that there hadn't been any. Are we introducing a whole lot more rules and regulations in hope of trying to find somebody we could possibly find doing something wrong? Because otherwise, this always strikes me as tilting at windmills. What is the problem we're trying to address? I've already expressed my big concern about, making sure that there are proper safeguards so that powers are not abused, that there is tolerance and that there is reasonableness. A lot of the things that seem to be listed as being covered by this order are things that, in the extreme, of course, the police can deal with. The law is there. And I just feel that a lot of this is just slightly over the top. I will not vote against it, but I'm certainly not going to vote for it.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. Okay, so we can now move to the vote, please. The girls are sorting it out, and then you can vote on your screen in a minute, in a second or two.
Okay, councillors, you've got 20 seconds to vote. So that's 70% voted in favour and 23% have abstained.
And 7% against?
70% in favour.
70% in favour, yeah. 23% abstained, and 7% against?
No, none against.
I thought 17, 23 to 93.
No, 77%.
Oh, 77, my apologies, sorry, my apologies. Okay, so that's carried. Thank you, Councillor Hills. Can we move on to use of the Southbrook Community Centre? Councillor David Smith.
David James.
David James. Oh, my apologies.
Yeah,
sorry, David. Sorry, I can't read my own writing. I do apologise.
Thank you, Chairman. This is very sad, really. Southbrook Community Centre is built in the early 70s. Probably 1970 and a bit. And it's not a bad building by any means. And it's been used until a few months ago by Happy Faces Nursery, which is very good to have that facility, I might say, and particularly on Southbrook. But unfortunately, COVID-19 made it difficult for them to run with the numbers that they could safely accommodate there. And I think there was an ill health problem, but I'm not terribly sure of that, so discount that. But anyway, they decided not to carry on. And of course, this left the Community Association facing responsibility for maintaining the building with virtually no income at all. And I think they discovered that they also had an unexpected bill coming at them too. So they decided to disband the Community Association, which of course, the way they do that was simply to ask for a surrender of the lease. Well, what else could we do? The surrender was accepted. So we're now faced with an empty building, which the council could use for a short period, I think, for its own community purposes, publicity and so on and so forth. But we passed a recommendation at the July strategy, or September one, saying that what we would do would be to wait until the end of September, to see if there was any other people interested in forming a new community group, community association, to take on the building and run it for the benefit of the local people there, which as councillors, each one of us, I think, would like that to happen. But anyway, we're now into October, so we're in the midst of an exercise to see if we can get a community group who would take on this building at a peppercorn rent, which means next to nothing by way of rental. They would probably be eligible for community grants too, but to take on that building and run it for the benefit of local people. As yet, I haven't had an indication from officers that we've been successful in that direction, but maybe I can be put right on that at an appropriate point. But what we've decided is that if no community group comes forward by the 1st of January 2021, then we'll have no alternative, because we'll be liable for rates on the building and continued maintenance and insurance, that then we would have to consider marketing the property on the open market to see if we can get an occupier that way. So, you know, I hope that you'll confirm your acceptance of that recommendation, because I commend it to you.
Thank you, Mr. Councillor James. Councillor Hills?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Members, this item actually comes under David's economic portfolio, but this is part of my ward, and plus also it involves my community portfolio. I would ask you all to support the advice that the centre is first offered to community groups on a peppercorn rent, which, if unsuccessful, would then be offered for commercial use. Now, we as a council have and are committed to engaging with residents and any volunteers to keep this as a community asset, whether as a community centre or perhaps in a different sort of form or cause. And then if not, we then have to look at commercial use. And obviously, if we did whatever use, grant funding would also be available. But at the same time, we as a council have to be aware that we have to get the best value for this asset. Therefore, I support the recommendation, and together with officers and the economic portfolio, we'll be trying to reach a satisfactory outcome. I have spoken to quite a few people. People know me on the ward. I've spoken to those who've been part of the community centre in the past, but so far we haven't had any luck. But that doesn't mean to say that we won't keep trying. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Mr. Councillor Hills. Right, we've got some speakers. Councillor Randall first. Just remind you, 5 minutes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a very quick question, really. I know it says it's peppercorn rent, but how much is peppercorn rent, and what would the rates be on the building?
Simon Bowers, can you answer that, please?
Thank you, Chairman. peppercorn is a traditional measure, literally the corn of a pepper, meaning nothing. Nobody ever demands the peppercorn rent. It's purely a bit of old-fashioned English. The rates, I think, were stated in the original report. If the chairman will give me a moment, I can perhaps look it up. But if you are a charity, you should be able to avoid having to pay them anyway.
Got 2 more speakers, so if you get back before that, that's okay, Simon. Thank you. Councillor Lomax. Oh, sorry, do you want to come back to Councillor James?
Yes, we've got the figure. 4,141 is the estimated rates maximum at this time.
4141. Yeah. Thank you much indeed. Okay, Councillor Randall, that's your question answered. Councillor Lomax.
Mine is a question too, thank you, Chairman. And in a previous existence, I was very much involved in actually generating interest in use of community facilities.
You were, yeah.
Indeed. What I wanted to ask is, I know that Councillor Hills has a number of contacts in the community. Has there been any community development work by officers? I mean, it's very, very difficult at the moment during COVID. I recognise that, but has anything been able to be done in that direction?
I'll just ask Councillor Hills that question, please, if you know the answer, Alan.
Yeah, well, I believe that the officers...
Yeah, Maria Taylor might want to reply, actually. Sorry about that, Alan. Maria Taylor's put her hand up. Thank you, Maria.
Yeah, okay. I'll let Maria answer that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, there has been lots of community development work. We're actually working with Futures Housing, and we're also doing some community development activities in the vicinity at this time to coordinate our efforts. So that is just being launched now, but we've started doing that already. There's in the next sort of 4 to 6 weeks, that's going to build up quite a lot. But yes, there's been lots of engagement with community groups in the area, and people we know might have an interest, but that's definitely broadening out. We are very much committed to community engagement on this one.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Chair. I start from the view that I feel that every major housing estate ought to have a community centre in it somewhere. It worries me that if we go down the road of effectively knocking this out as a community centre, there is no other centre around about Southbrook, well, other than the use of the school. We're in a position where we would never get such a facility back again. Now, I understand the difficulties at the moment. I think it was reported at the strategy group that a children's centre, because of COVID, could no longer continue. In situations like that, is there an equivalent of a furlough scheme that would allow a children's group to survive so that they continue providing services in Southbrook? I hope that if we do get to the stage that we cannot get together people to form a new association to run the centre, then any commercial letting is done on a reasonably short-term lease, so that it is only helping through a difficult period, but recognising that we need this building in the Southbrook. It may not be occupied or used all of the time, but it is important that Southbrook has such a facility. I'm not thinking just in terms of where we vote in Southbrook. I'm thinking of any other meetings that people want to organise. I just think it's important, and I don't think we should be looking at this as a sort of short-term problem. I think that it needs to be thought through more.
Thanks, Steve. Councillor Ritchie. I'll ask Maria to come back on that point in a minute. Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's pretty much an echo of that comment, actually. Clearly, we would all want such a centre to be used for community activity. That would be criminal in many ways for it to go to waste. And obviously that is dependent on community groups coming forward to take up the offer. So again, it was really to echo the same points as Councillor Ritchie. It would seem to make sense that we are in a particularly difficult time at the moment. So hopefully that if it does have to go down the commercial route, that could be of short tenure potentially to allow it to go back to its original use at some stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Councillor Wesley.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was just thinking and suddenly realised how far along we are in the year. I know that's a little bit sad, but I haven't been to work since.
Sign of age, Mark Wesley. Sign of age.
No, I've got no idea what day of the week it is most of the time if I'm on it. But January, Councillor James said we're sort of going to close the book on this in January. In the current circumstances, the current environment of COVID and things being locked down and people not being around, I'm just suddenly thinking maybe we should extend that time. Extend that time a little bit. I don't see any rush for it. I mean, it's not going to fall down in the near future. I know we don't want to hang on to it and see it going to rack and ruin, but you know, bearing in mind we're going into a unitary authority and the rates on it are basically all going into the pot that it's, you know, we put it in, we take it out. It's hardly a real expense. So you know, maybe we should give the community a little bit more time to come up with something as hopefully things ease off a little bit.
Thank you, Councillor Wesley. Maria, can I ask you to come back? And there's a theme there, isn't there, about this idea of giving the community a bit more time to find a solution?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. If we do get individuals that come forward, I mean, there hasn't been many people involved in doing this kind of thing in the area for decades, because actually the building has been primarily used as a nursery. So if individuals do come forward and they want to run the community centre, they're going to need support and help, and that's what we will do. We will, if individuals are interested, and that might take some time, but if they come forward and they want to form a committee, then we can get that arrangement in place and we can support them, and there are other agencies that can support them through that process. So that is what we're there to offer to help with. Plan B may well be that other community organisations want to be part of that process as well as local individuals. And that's what we're exploring. And all of that will be worked on in the coming months before the commercial options are looked at, because it's in everyone's interest that continues to be a community facility. So that's all I can tell you in terms of assurance. There are challenges at the moment, but other community centres are continuing to operate in some way through lockdown, and there's no reason why we can't do some activities, at least show people around and see the potential of what could be when things get back to something like normal.
Thank you, Maria. Simon Bowers wants to make a comment. Simon?
Chairman, listening to the tone of the debate, there is no particular issue if members do wish to say the 1st of January date should be a little bit later. As long as members appreciate, obviously that involves a certain degree of cost in looking after the building and a certain degree of risk, because unoccupied buildings do sometimes attract unwelcome behaviour. If members want to give a direction on that, that's absolutely fine. And in terms of the suggestion from Councillor Ritchie and Councillor Harris, I understand entirely what's being suggested, but we would need to give long enough for a commercial tenant to feel it was worth their while. So I would imagine a lease in the order of sort of 5 years would be a sensible one to aim for, with a view then to trying again to bring it back into community use if we were forced down the commercial route in the first place. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you, Simon. Very helpful. Councillor Wesley? Councillor Wesley.
Yeah, just unmuting. Yeah, I mean, on that basis, I mean, I'd like to propose that we put a date of, say, March and give it an extra 3 months. If I got a seconder on that, I'd appreciate it.
Extra 3 months, that's to when? The middle of January, February? January, yeah.
I was saying March.
That's more than 3 months, isn't it? Okay, March. And is that too late, Simon, March or not?
I meant from January.
Oh, from January, so my apologies. Simon, is that too late, March? Simon Bowers?
Chairman, it's a matter of risk and of the balance of the costs you want to bear. Obviously, if the decision is to keep it until the 31st of March, then it won't be this council taking the decision on the future anyway.
No, that's right. Yeah.
So we'd need to ask the shadow executive to take a view on what should happen thereafter. So just practically, it might be easier for the end of February, say, but it's not the end of the world.
Thank you, Simon. Councillor Matton.
Thank you. This is a part of my ward too, and I would like to second Councillor Wesley's proposal, albeit if he's happy for it to be the end of February, I think we should make it the end of February.
Okay, thanks for that, Peter. So Councillor Wesley suggesting the end of February, and Peter's willing to second it. Just got a couple more speakers. Councillor Lomax.
Chairman,
Sorry, Catherine.
I was simply going to second the motion.
Okay, you're happy. Thank you, Steve, Catherine. Thank you. Councillor Auger.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good idea from Councillor Wesley. I was just saying that as long as it's be operated and worked out by officers, it would be nice to, I shouldn't think it'd be extortionate costs. It would be important that we do know the costs as soon as possible. But I think that it's a good idea, and it certainly shows willing on our side that we do want this to be a community facility.
Thanks, Mr. Councillor Auger. Councillor Hills.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I've listened to this very carefully. Basically, I'm happy if we extend it, but I do have concerns, knowing the area as I do, that we need to monitor the building very carefully during that period, because one thing I don't want to see is to see it abused and fall into disrepair. So I would ask that if we do agree to this, that we monitor the building, not saying we go there every day or anything like that, but we keep an eye on it just to make sure that we maintain the state that it's in.
Thank you, Councillor Hills. Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you. Once this asset, the subject of debate is to transfer to the Town Council?
Has that been discussed, Simon Bowers?
Chairman, it was one of the buildings that was offered to the Town Council. The Town Council declined at this point to take it on.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor Shepherd? Yep. Councillor Auger.
Chair, I forgot to put my name down.
I'll put your hand down. Okay. Can I just ask Councillor James then on the amended recommendation, as you see it?
Perfectly acceptable. And I do take Councillor Hill's point that it will need regular inspections.
So what would you like the recommendation to say, David?
I'm quite happy with that. I think that goes with the territory with property management, regular inspections, because there is a danger of vandalism, and it might not be vandalism coming from that particular estate, because people do go up Borough Hill and they'll come down and jump up and climb up the downpipes onto the roof, damage the roofs, all sorts of things. But no, I'm quite happy with the amendment.
Can you read out your amended recommendation, please, sir?
Well, it will be that the Southbrook Community Centre should first be offered to community groups on a peppercorn rent basis, and if this is unsuccessful, offered for commercial uses, each is set after the 28th, or is it 29th of February 2021.
And what about the issue of monitoring the site? That's been raised.
Well, we could put that in. Peppercorn successful after community, subject to regular inspection and monitoring of the building during the interim period.
Can I ask Simon if that's going to be acceptable for officers?
Chairman, it would be acceptable, but I was going to suggest we've heard members' perfectly valid and sensible comments. Yeah. We would do that anyway. So.
Okay, fine. Okay. Do I have a seconder then for this amended recommendation?
Councillor Hills.
Councillor Hills, okay, that's very kind, thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Irving Swift.
Thank you, Chairman. Just two things. One, the building was offered by the parish, and normally parishes, if they like to take those kind of building because they are close to the ground. But secondly, I would like to know a bit more about the cost, and is it possible to ensure an unoccupied building, because it's become more and more difficult, or the premium is very, very high. So we are voting for something, and we don't have, the officer said, well, it would be all right, but every penny count at the moment. And I would not like to have a bill that is much more expensive than we think. So I'm not against the idea, but I would like, before I could vote, to know if we extend, how much it will cost us. The bottom line, please.
Simon, can you help Councillor Irving-Smith on that point? Simon
Chairman,
Bowers?
I'll do my best.
Yes, thank you.
We know the rates bill is a little bit under £5,000 a year, so you can do the pro rata month figure of that. There will be some utility bills, probably of a lower figure than that, sort of standing charges and so on. And then you're into the sort of imponderables of what damage the building might suffer and require attention. I mean, Councillor Irving-Smith is quite right to say that our insurance doesn't cover unoccupied buildings when they suffer malicious damage. We cannot get the insurance cover. Order of Staff have tried very hard to get it, but it is not available in the market. So there is, as I mentioned earlier, there is a risk of leaving the building open, but it's a matter of scale and proportion. There's a risk leaving it empty until the end of December. The risk is clearly somewhat higher if it's until the end of February. As long as members are aware of that risk and are prepared to take it, then that's fair enough.
Thank you, Simon. I got Councillor Brown, which to speak.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to offer my perspective as someone who works in the commercial insurance sector. I'm surprised to note Simon's comments that unoccupied buildings cover isn't available on the market. It's something that I provide pretty much on a daily or weekly, at least weekly basis to many of my clients. Maybe there are some peculiarities around it being a public sector risk that make the issue slightly more complicated. Regarding the issue of regular inspections, if we were to have unoccupied buildings cover, then that would be a condition of any insurance policy that we were able to obtain. There'd need to be weekly inspections in all likelihood, and the premium impact would probably be somewhere in the low four figures, I would have thought, compared to an occupied building. But if we're not able to obtain cover for reasons that baffle me, then that's by the by, I would have thought.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. You got an offer there, Simon. Councillor Wesley.
I'm sorry, Chairman. As a point of personal explanation, I don't think that I can put forward an offer, and nor was I.
I wasn't being serious there. Sorry, Councillor Wesley.
Yeah, I appreciate everything costs money. We don't want to fritter money away, but you know, with Southbrook is a particular case in point, isn't it? It's got issues, and we should do everything we can to look after it. The point being that at some point it's going to be empty anyway. It probably already is empty, isn't it? So, you know, Simon I think said that we're just talking about an additional amount of time. So it's not like it's not even after the January, it's not going to be sold immediately. So it's going to be empty for a period, whatever. So we've got to suck that up, whatever. It's just a matter of an extra couple of months.
That's fine. Thank you, Mark. I think that sums up very nicely. So can we now move to the vote, please? Why have we still got members of the public on the list? Alan Nape. Well, it can be, yeah. It can be, yeah. That's okay, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Councillors, you've got 20 seconds to vote.
This is on the amendment, remember? Amended recommendation.
Okay, Chairman, that's 88% have voted in favour, 3% against, and 9% have abstained.
Thank you, Jeff Lees. That's a very clear majority in favour of that recommendation. So thank you very much indeed, Councillor James and Councillor Hills. We now move on to our next item, which is funding of an affordable housing scheme, Gordon's View and Norton. That's Councillor Daniel Criven.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully this will be a relatively quick item. At Strategy Group, we agreed to draw £65,000 from a Section 106 monies towards phase 2 at Gordon's View, the first phase being built back in 2007, I believe. This proposal will provide 8 affordable units going forward, which is something that obviously is part of our corporate plan to help with affordable housing in the district. And so the monies have been put in from a Section 106 on a previous planning application over at Clipston several years ago. The money obviously won't cost the district council any money itself. These are monies that have been provided by previous developers on a site where there wasn't any possibility of providing affordable housing on that original planning site. So we are drawing down £65,000 on the monies we have from Section 106. That leaves us with approximately £84,000 left in the pots for future developments going forward. And there are several other applications that have got Section 106 monies that might come on stream in the future as well. So it's a rolling scheme that we've got money coming forward to help with affordable housing going forward. So just putting it forward that we accept the recommendation that the application of funding for £65,000 towards phase 2 of an affordable housing scheme at Gordon's View Norton be approved, with funding to be drawn from the planning obligation funds for this purpose held by the council. The funding agreement is to be valid for a period of 18 months from the date of this resolution. So I put that forward as a proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Cribbin. Councillor Smith, you want to second this?
Absolutely, yes. Very, very happy to second this recommendation. It really pleases me that we've got a contribution going to a really lovely site. Often affordable housing is not in such great positions, but this is a real star spot. I don't know any.
You're frozen? Yeah. Okay, David, got that. You're frozen at the moment. Councillor Brown.
Thank you. I'll pick up where my ward colleague left off.
That's right, yes.
I'm in full agreement. It is a lovely spot in Norton, and I just wanted to add that the greater provision of affordable housing within the village is a long-standing ambition of Norton Parish Council, as it is for many parish councils in the rural areas. They want to see sites where young people from the village can buy their own home, and hopefully this will go some way to doing that.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Can we now move to the vote, please?
Councillor, do you have 20 seconds to vote? Starting now. Chairman, that's 100% in favour.
Fantastic. We got one by the end of the night. Excellent. Yes, it's okay, David. We saw you lost your connection. Right. So that's agreed. Thank you. We now move on to the last item for this evening, which is the corporate governance report. I'll hand over to Councillor Bunting. Annual report.
Good evening, everybody. This is the annual report of the committee, and as you'll see, it follows mostly a similar format to previous years. Following some comments that were made to me following last year's report, and subsequently I've added a background as to the purpose and role and what we're trying to achieve to the report. So there's more information for members, and then goes through the detail of what the committee has been doing through the year to discharge the role that is outlined both in its terms of reference and the background document. I put it to members. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bunting. I understand, Councillor Parker, you're going to, as a member of the committee, you're going to second this?
Yeah, happy to second the motion, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Are there any other people wishing to speak? Can we just say agreed on that one? Everyone happy with that?
Yeah. I'll take that. That's 100% then, Chair.
It is. The second one on the run. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So that concludes this evening's meeting. Thank you for your attendance. And I wish you all the very best for the rest of the evening. Thank you much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.